This is SmarketPlace. I'm Keith Reynolds, and I'm the president of Publio. We're a content strategy and multimedia virtual studio, and I'm here with Tom Dempsey. Welcome, Tom, from Las Vegas. Let's see some
All
rock and roll.
right. Yeah. So I've got the virtual background going because I didn't know if anybody wanted to see slot machines in the background. But yes, I am in Las Vegas to see Dead and Company, which will be a great show. So that certainly fulfills our rock and roll part of it.
Awesome. And last week I broadcast from Arizona, where I had seen the Rolling Stones. So summer concerts are getting into full swing. We have a great show today with Rob Weiss, who I've known for about 10 years. He's an entrepreneur, marketing and sales genius, and has a really cool video company. I don't want to call it a video production company because it's really about marketing strategy and video. It's much more than just a production company. And I'm really excited to introduce you. Rob, welcome. We don't hear you.
There you go.
There you go. Welcome. You get two introductions. Welcome,
Hello,
Rob.
everybody. Yeah, just to bounce off the concert experience, going to see the Rolling Stones next week. So,
All
Awesome.
right. All
Yeah.
right. Where?
in Jersey at well, it's Giant Stadium to me. It will never be MetLife Stadium. So,
That's great.
yeah.
So you are in New York City?
I'm
And
in New York City. Yeah, north of New York City right now. So yes, definitely.
Tom's in Vegas, and I am out in Denver. So streaming to you live. This is really wonderful to have you. Why don't you set the stage, Rob? Tell us a little bit about yourself and your company and how you got into this business, because you've been in it for a long time, and it seems like the market's like coming to you now.
Thank you very much for that. I hope so. Yeah, that's what we've been trying. Video is on the adoption curve, similar to way websites were back in the day, email marketing was back in the day, SEO and social. Those things, of course, everybody does those now. Of course they do. Years ago, they didn't do those things. That's FYI here. I'm hearing some background noise. Like,
Yeah, we hear it. Tom, is that you?
I'm in a kind of a quiet place, but I'll tell you what, I'll mute until I speak.
All right.
okay.
Yeah, that took care of
Yeah,
it.
definitely him. Yeah.
That's Vegas, baby.
What's happening? That's what happens when you go live, right?
So,
But
so
just
what
to kind of
happens in
reiterate,
Vegas? I'm sorry. Go ahead. I was going to
just to
make a joke.
reiterate, like all those digital marketing tactics were once new, but everybody does them now, and it's undisputable that everybody does those and invests in those and spends time with those things. And video is on that trajectory. I still feel like on a scale of 1 to 10, we're probably about a 3 or a 4 now, which is certainly different than it was a couple of years ago when it was a 1 or 2. But in the next 3 or 4 years, like more and more people will be getting started with video or doubling down with video. And I run across people now that they're doing a lot of video, but just not with a very strategic focus with video. And I think we'll talk about some of these things, later. You're muted, Keith.
Your company is not MultiVision Video; it's MultiVision Digital, and so
That's
you really have. What? When did you start your company?
2011.
Right. So I
A
mean,
little bit of
that
Yeah.
that really says something about your vision and your ability to find a market very early.
Yeah, we've always positioned ourselves not as a video production company. For those entrepreneurs out there, I started this company without any background in video, zero, none.
Really?
And I got, found people that were really good at video and really good at editing. And I stayed focused on the sales, the project management. And I've always positioned my company as a professional services company that creates sales and marketing content that happens to be video. And that's, it's a competitive differentiator, and the strategic thought process that goes into not doing one video, but how to make an investment in video now so it moves the needle in that objective and the organization sees value in that. And then it allows them to wake up and be like, wow, like we should be doing video once every year or twice every year or 4 times every year, whatever that means to that organization. Because everybody's different, but the point is that there's a cadence to that video content, and that's what we do.
So you'll work with a client and maybe start with one video, but the goal is to get it into the rhythm of their business, into their business cycle.
Yes and no. So the latter part of that is absolutely correct, but it might not be one video. And I have a little case study right here of a example of a video project where what we did is we did one high-level sales video for this organization. And then we did 5 different FAQs these might have been talked about high level in that overview video, but then we pulled them apart because once somebody understands the product at a high level, they have questions. Right? So what we did is we pre-planned those questions. So this was all a project, and this was 6 videos that came out of that project, not just one.
Interesting.
For one product. And they might have invested more in this project versus, doing 6 videos versus just one. But the incremental investment was nominal compared to the upfront. And it gave them the whole package of information that a buyer needs to understand at a high level what it is, and then answer some of their questions as they went through the second stage of the sales process to then convert into qualified leads. And yeah, so that's what we did.
So you really, I'm going to interpret here, but it sounds like you're following the inbound marketing mantra of understand your customer deeply, get the information organized in a way so that it meets their journey of learning.
That happens to be video. Exactly. And that's basically what we've been doing. And that's, there's a lot of myths out there that a video always has to be a story. Tell me a story, tell me a story, tell me a story. And yes, a lot of times that's correct. But in this case, there's really no story here. I guess the business message is the story, but we're really just giving a buyer information about what they need to know in order to make a decision about that organization or about that product. And that's pretty much what consumers and buyers do, whether you're in the B2B world and the B2C world. They just need to get information.
So that's one format, is to do a high level and then have the FAQs. What are some of the other really trending ways that people are using video today, and what's effective?
It kind of depends on if it's a B2B or B2C company. But the new trending ways is really just to, as I said, be a little bit more strategic about video. And how, I guess, how you create video hasn't really changed, but the strategic thought process that goes into video and making sure it's deliberate and integrated into your marketing process, sales process, social media process, recruiting process, training, post client acquisition training process. Those are all ways that you can implement video. And those are very, very different types of content or types of videos that go into each one of those processes. So, the kind of, I guess the answer to your question is just that, is being a little bit more thoughtful and strategic about it, and creating the content that aligns to those plans.
I know you do a lot of on location work, and over time, does that turn into like B-roll? Like if you're in that strategic mode, are you building a video
Library.
library for your clients?
100%. That's exactly part of the strategic side, because we can build a roadmap, especially if a client has multiple locations. We're going to go into one location knowing that we might use some B-roll and interview at a later date, because the roadmap has a plan to do a different type of video later in the year. So in order to make the best use out of that on-location video production investment, we're going to ask the client those questions and be able to capture that content, even though we might not use, part of that content in that initial project for that location. At least we have that in the can, and then we can pull that out. In addition, there's a lot of repurposing that we can do. A lot of the stuff that we do is evergreen content. Going back to to this paper, this product, these videos are going to last for 6 or 7 years. I mean, because the technology of the product is not going to significantly change. So if we can capture B-roll, capture footage, there's a lot of things that we can do with that. Again, having those conversations up front is the most important part of video production, not after the fact. We don't have a lot of salespeople know the word hopium. So we don't have hopium, after we have the footage in the can and hope that we can do something with it, because it may or may not work.
Right. You want to
So we want to make sure that we're very deliberate and in planning and being thoughtful about what we capture, what we ask people, the questions that we get back towards their business objectives.
do you do discuss some of the formats? I was trying to think about one, but then that made me actually. There's probably multiple, like one-on-one interviews where the interviewer is off camera and the executive's there, or the executive's interviewing a customer, or talk about the different kinds of formats that you see people using today.
I think that's probably, rather than saying formats, I think it's more about business objectives, right?
Wow.
So an executive interviewing a client would be a case study or a testimonial, or it could be something for PR purposes that might be like this, right? You've got two people kind of talking and engaging. Whereas we could also do a customer testimony or case study without that executive asking questions, where it's me as a director asking that client questions, and really just we see the client on camera talking about that organization, about the problems, solutions, and results of that effort with B-roll and stuff like that. So I think it goes back to the business objective, and then you carve out what you need for that initiative.
Rob, is part of the objectives is to make it as interactive as possible? Do you see that plays any differently than just having one person talk about business objectives or particular topics?
I guess define interactive, right? Because for me, an interactive video means that you can click on it, that you can maybe go down different paths. It'll present you, would you like to talk about product A or product B? And allow the user to click and then go down that path because they care about product A or product B. That's interactive to me. And that's very few and far between with video, because the software really just hasn't developed. There's instances of that.
It's been the dream, but it's hard
been
to
around for a while. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, but
I started out at IBM. They were pushing laser discs for that.
yeah. So it's been around for a while, but the execution of that really hasn't come to life at the
Interesting.
moment. Here we are in 2024. Not to say that won't, because video is just zeros and ones. But I think what you're asking is the interactivity of maybe like this is the engagement factor of video. So rather than say interactive, it's more engagement, and video is engaging. It is the most engaging form of content on a digital in our digital lives, but also in presentations. If I were to go in front of people and I were to put up a PowerPoint slide and just start clicking through that PowerPoint slides, I guarantee you people are going to be looking at their computers and looking at their phones. But if I played a video for a minute and a half, everybody's watching. So the engagement factor is so much higher with video. So going back to your, kind of your ask, it's about creating the right content for the objective, and whether that's a talking head or motion graphics or a combination of such, whether it's an on-location shoot or a remote shoot, get the right content for the right business objective. And sometimes it's the story, sometimes it's not.
A lot of our interaction is through LinkedIn, right? And so I get to see your content quite a bit, and it's not about the. I mean, the technical is a given. What I see you really do is help people use this medium for storytelling. Tell us a little bit about your approach to working with people who don't know the medium. They're showing up to the studio or they're showing up on location. How do you get people to tell stories?
Well, if we don't do our pre-production on understanding what the message is, understanding what the story is, understanding what the business objectives are, we don't show up. Right? We want that to be locked down on paper. So, I'm just going to pull this up again, right? We knew before we went in there, we had this all in a document,
right,
that talked about the high level, what it is. We drilled down on each one of these 5 and had bullet points in each one of these 5. And we knew that, Jim was going to talk about this, and Matt was going to talk about that, and Josh was going to talk about that, and Jim was also going to talk about that. So we knew who were the experts at the company that were going to talk about what, and they knew it too. We also knew what types of B-roll we were going to get to tell that story or provide that information. So pre-production is the most important thing when it comes to video, and the rest is just execution. And that's the secret sauce, is the execution. But without the pre-production and the knowing where you're going, we don't show up.
So what is it? A failure plan is a plan to fail?
Yes, something like that. Yes. Because with video, 100% of the time, 100% of the plan, 100% never happens. Right? So we need to be very agile with what we get, what we can get, but we've got the plan. So my job and my team's job is to make sure we get what we need to then deliver those business objectives.
So a lot of the people, well, go ahead.
Well, no, I was just going to say, so in pre-production, you're really outlining what the customer wants to focus on and what the business objectives are. And in post-production, you're taking snippets out as much as you can to be able to go back to pre-production and say, okay, we wanted to cover these specific points. So, let's get vignettes on each one. Is that typically how it works?
Yeah, I mean, kind of, yes. We have the messaging in pre-production. We know who's going to say what and what we need to capture. We go out, we execute, and then in that works for that final deliverable. And again, that's part of the secret sauce, because we never know what we're going to get, if it's going to be raining out, if somebody's good on camera or not great on camera. Maybe, something's broke, doesn't work. Like there's, 1,000 things that could go wrong that we have to compensate for, and to make decisions on location to then be able to put the puzzle pieces together.
You talked a little bit about whether somebody's good on camera or bad on camera, I think was how you said it.
Mm-hmm.
Working with executives who don't, they're not trained, they don't have media training. You're working with them for the first time. What's the difference between having to memorize your lines and setting up a scenario where somebody's talking off the top of their head about topics they know? How do you
we never want them to memorize their lines, because going back to this, all these people that we interviewed for these product videos, they talk about this stuff every single day of the week, whether it's on Zoom calls, face to face, at trade shows.
Right.
So we're all professionals, and the only thing that I want to do is to make sure that professional knows what they're going to talk about when they're in front of the camera, and that's the starting point. They don't need a script for that. I.e., case in point, right now, you're asking me questions. Exactly. I might not be perfect, but it's what I do for a living, and I don't have a script, behind me.
Right.
So, but we did pre-planning. We kind of know generally what the questions are going to be, right? We know what the flow is. And that's the same thing with video. And part of my job is to make sure that executive does come across and does sound professional like they are in person.
Right.
And when you see somebody, again, going back to the beginning of the conversation, where the goal is to get into a cadence of doing videos a couple times a year, or at least once a year. The more videos you have over time, you see that person in a suit, in a polo shirt, little scruffy, long hair, short hair, in a dead shirt, like all these different visions of that person, but they're being professional, and they're providing the information that somebody needs to know to be informed and to make a business buying decision at some point. And that's the ultimate goal. It's not to be perfect, but just to be real.
So before we move on to rock and roll, Tom, if you have any other questions, I have one more. You got anything, Tom?
Sorry, I'm on mute just because of the stuff behind me. But
right.
No, go ahead, Keith.
Yeah. So over the last several years, my path, Rob, has been around using content that you produce and others produce and building a inbound marketing program around it, right? And that means you need a feedback loop. And I know a lot of what I've seen in your writing and videos on LinkedIn, you talk about the strategic nature. And when a media company has a TV show, they get feedback from Nielsen. How do you work with customers to bring the viewership back to them so they see the progress they're making? Talk a little bit about how you close the loop on the strategy.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, that's the marketing side. We have a methodology called a video first marketing strategy, which is just that. So it takes the video, and then you start to derive all the ancillary pieces of content that a marketer would need, i.e. blog posts, social media posts, email nurturing campaigns, on the web pages itself, potentially press releases. This whole series, which is informative, could be given to an industry publication potentially. So there's a lot of ways to leverage that video or multi-purpose that video, repurpose that content in different digital channels. And because it's digital, there's tracking there that can happen, from view rates to engagement rates to time watched to landing pages to seeing how SEO play, or how video plays a role in SEO in terms of the pages that have video versus the pages that don't have video.
Mm,
Over time, those are going to rank higher because the dwell time will be higher. So that whole kind of marketing side does take a little time, obviously, because you need to put that into distribution and you need to get those, pieces of feedback over time. But it's a very valuable exercise to show that video is moving the needle, and that's the next step with video. That I have a couple clients that are really doing that well, not a lot,
hmm.
um, because as we said before, video is still early on the adoption scale, and I'll make this analogous to websites. People built a website, they didn't really have any money or experience in marketing that website.
Right.
And they're like, oh, wait, I have a website. Wouldn't it just work for me? Like, no, I really need to market that. So it's the same adoption curve with video, is where people are starting to realize that they have a video. They do need to put a little money aside to then, or time if they're doing it internally, to then use that video to repurpose it, to market it, to get into the channels that they need to affect.
Well, I do come at this from the marketing side, and my question is very parochial, but it's now to the point, and it's not experimental, but you literally connect your video to your CRM,
Yeah, you
right?
can do that. Yeah.
And it really is the setup that you've been describing that enables you. So within your Google Analytics, where you see the traffic to your pages, you then look within your HubSpot reporting and see which customers were watching. And now you can nurture those customers because 15 people watched that video, and you can send out a personalized email to 15 people who have watched that email or have requested uh, more information after watching a video.
Correct. Yeah. And again, that's the adoption with video, that you have more of that integration with HubSpot, most of the big CRM systems, Salesforce, there's probably a few more out there that have integrations with video hosting platforms like Vidyard and Wistia. I don't think
Yep.
YouTube. But yes, then you can trigger personalized communications off of watching video, or you can even send triggers off to salespeople saying, "Hey, call Tom because Tom watched over 30 seconds of the video, whereas Keith only watched 5."
Right.
Let's say so who's a more hotter prospect to call because they watched longer, they watched the video longer. We're also doing personalized videos as well. So we've done that a few times where we're actually taking data that we have in the CRM and baking that into the video itself. And that's pretty cool. And then there's other platforms out there where, Tom, you talked about engagement. You can build lead forms in videos. You can literally stop the video at second 27 and then have somebody say, put your information in if you want to watch the rest of it.
Another trend I've seen, and we've signed up as an affiliate with a program that does translation. Have you played with any of the video translation programs?
We have not. No, we have not yet.
Um,
Transcription, yes. Translation, no.
So we have a tool that you can upload the video, and it not only translates the voice in your voice, but makes the lips move. So when you're watching the French version, your lips are reconfigured to speak French versus German or English or Japanese or Chinese. It's pretty amazing.
That's probably more on the the AI side, right? And
Yeah.
the tools that AI can give you.
Are you getting much into AI? That's a really interesting point and probably a good way to wrap up.
Yeah, we're dipping our toe in the water. We haven't done it for production. We've done it in post production. For example, if we're mixing two takes, and in the second take, somebody's shirt's crumpled up like this, we can spread it out and make it look nice. And there's some other things in post that we've done with AI. But we haven't really done a lot from a creation standpoint yet.
Right.
So
I, that's a whole niche in and of itself, right? Is that um, is uploading a script and having a virtual human do the speaking, and I've seen it for training videos, in particular.
yeah,
Whereas I think what you do, the on location and the professional interview, kind of, and then mixed with the B-roll, it's much more human.
hmm yeah. I mean, I kind of make it analogous to the avatars before, or an actor that used to pitch a product. Because I have people that have approached me with like, oh, we want to have a spokesperson to do this, and I'm like, why? Right? You have a spokesperson. You need to hire an actor. You need to spend time and money on that. They need to practice. That means a script. And when your customer engages you, they'll never see that person. That's a spokesperson, right?
Right.
So why not have your real people who that prospect will meet during the sales process? Do the videos, and
We
then they
had
are like, "Oh, okay, you're right."
Yeah. We had Kevin Perlmutter on, who's a mutual colleague, and he talks about the emotional side, and I was just listening to you. It's like there's no better way to convey that emotion than using video. And B2B, he used the example of a supply chain software company he worked with, where it wasn't about the features and benefits and competitive, relative to the competition that we're better software. It was, we are we're selling confidence. Our supply chain software will make sure that that widget is on the production line when you need it.
Yeah,
And that,
imagine that salesperson, owner, technical person, whoever that is, saying that on camera. I guarantee you they have a lot of conviction and
right,
emotional credibility saying that will never come through with a spokesperson.
there you go. Yeah. Well, we are at the outside limits of our talk about what you do. We want to know about your rock and roll uh, tastes and favorite bands, and hear your concert stories. We know if you're in the New York market, you've seen some
Yeah,
music.
well,
Tell us about what you tell
I
us
grew
about.
up in Philadelphia,
Ah,
and there was 93.3 and 94.1, the classic rock stations, right next to each other on the dial, and that's what I grew up with. So I've been to a lot of concerts, and we used to stop by Jimmy, who was a scalper at the time when there was actually hard tickets, and like literally we would just be hanging out on a Wednesday or a Saturday, like, oh, like Bad Company and Deep Purple playing tonight. Do you want to go? Sure. Pink Floyd. Oh, do you want to go? The Who.
nice.
Like, we used to scout tickets all the time to go to concerts. But yeah, so I've been to a ton of shows, and like I said, going to see Rolling Stones next week, and got tickets to Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons in June, which I
Wow,
thought
those
I
are
would
cool
never
things.
see, but I'm like, why not? Like, this guy's 89 years old. Like, I'll probably know every song that he's going to sing, and just an icon.
Wow.
Musician.
I
So,
saw the show about him on Broadway,
yeah,
um,
the
and
Jersey Boys. Yeah.
Jersey Boys, and that was set in the 50s or early 60s.
Yeah. Yeah. He's been around for that long. So, taking the whole family, we're all going. I'm taking my
Nice.
dad and my kids, and we're going to going down to Atlantic City and having a good show. So, but
Well, there's, another one of our guests was talking about that. He brought his parents, his wife, and the daughter. His daughter actually bought the tickets. Like, this is now a multi-generational experience that pops up in the summertime.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Love concerts, and I will not stop going to concerts as long as people are playing.
Well, so the reason that Tom and I got going on this is that when We met in a networking group out here in Denver. Our first cup of coffee, within 15 minutes, we discovered that Boston was both of our first concerts. And he did it in LA and I did it in Chicago when the first Boston album came out. And we got talking, and then we realized that today sales and marketing is all the elements in a rock and roll band, right? You're making you have a product, you got to sell the product, but you use creative and you develop your own unique voice, and like just the analogies go on and on and on. And you're in a similar manner. It's like you kind of operate like bringing creative talent together to get an output of a product.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
yeah, it's part of the secret sauce, right?
yeah. And then Tom, I'll bring you in. You had mentioned last week, and you brought some examples from the marketing, like the Grateful Dead from Brian Halligan, and it wasn't Dharmesh. Who's the other author? I forget. But tell us a little bit about what you brought. You there, Tom?
So connection issues, I guess.
Yeah, we've lost Tom. All right.
There. Sorry. Now, can you hear me?
Yep, we hear you.
Can you hear me, Keith?
Yes, sir.
Oh, good. Okay. Well, being in Las Vegas to see the Grateful Dead or Dead and Company, it reminded me of a book I read a number of 3 years ago. And Keith, you're familiar with the authors too. There's a lot to do with HubSpot and SMarketPlace. But there are 19 principles that exist that it's marketing of the Grateful Dead and how unique done over the years really is. So there were just three that I thought I would mention that really sort of stuck out in my mind as I reread and went through this again. The first one is experiment relentlessly. And improvisation has a lot to do with what the Grateful Dead have done, both individually and as a band. And whether you like the 20-minute jam, it's experimenting and it's trying new things. And every company should heed the same. It's time to improvise sometimes. It's time to experiment. It's time to try something new or whatever it happens to be, but experimentlessly.
Well,
The
that's
second one is establish new categories. The one really that set the Dead apart is that it's not just a rock and roll band. It's a mixture of and a fusion of a lot of different types of music.
so.
Sorry, I thought you said something.
Nope.
And they created their own sound. All their. And one of my quotes ever happens to be from Jerry Garcia, who's the guitarist. Number one, you want to nobody else has ever.
And what's your third one? We're really short on time, and your connection's kind of bad. But go ahead, drop the third one on us.
Yeah. But the third one and the last one is bring people on a journey. They daily list, well before that, way back to the 80s, and they ultimately got about a half million
His connection's really
Yeah,
bad.
yeah, we lost him.
Mhm.
Well, Rob, let me weigh in with you. Uh, be willing to experiment, create new categories. Um, those are all about innovation. How do you see, you work with traditional businesses, right? They have a lot at stake. How do you work with executives to kind of get outside of their thought and try new things that are going to appear in the video you create?
Well, I think video is something that's new still.
Mm,
I talk to a lot of companies that they're like, "Oh, we don't have any need for video. We're not planning for any video." And of course, I walk away and bang my head against the wall because I don't understand that. But there still are. So video is still new,
yeah.
and it's it's hard to convince anybody to do anything. So I'm gonna just kind of deflect that question a little bit and say that if they're not open to thinking about video, um, they're not going to be doing it.
So what about a little bit further down the relationship? Um, they want to do video, and yet they don't have a lot of knowledge about it, and some of the ideas might seem to stretch them. You're going to find yourself, I would imagine, not just a producer and putting the technical things together, but you're the director. You're trying to get things out of people and have them express things.
Yeah.
How do you work with people to try something new?
Um, they have to trust the process.
Hmm.
So I say that a lot in our pre-production meetings. I let them know what to expect. Um, when we're on set, I do the same thing. I repeat that. Kind of tell them what I told them like a week earlier on Zoom in terms of how to perform on camera, how they should act, how they should be, but also to trust the process. And by example, by case study, I guess, we have one lawyer that been working with probably for 2.5, 3 years now. They got done maybe like 1 or 2 videos in an hour when we first started working with them. The last time we shot, we did 5 in an hour because again, we did all the preparation. That person, we've been working with them for a couple of years. He knew the process. He understood. He learned how to be in front of the camera and trusted the process because then he also saw what the deliverables were and what we did with that content
Right.
of him on camera. So the first time you're on camera, you don't know what to expect in terms of seeing yourself in that final video. So you need to trust the process. You need to trust us, and understand that we're not looking for perfection. We're just looking for somebody to be who they are, giving information. And even what you see on TV and in the movies, there's multiple takes, there's multiple cameras, and that's the secret sauce, is to do those cuts and do the creative stuff that that we need to do as a video production company to give back what we need to for that client.
That's really insightful, and I think the great way to end is trust the process, right? And just as a rock and roll band has to be willing to put themselves out there and get the feedback and know that they're going to evolve and change, but that
Yeah.
they're going to get results if they do it. I'm
And
hearing the same thing from
well,
you.
think about the rock and roll bands, right? I guarantee you go to a concert and those bands have messed up. And they know they messed up, but you don't know they messed up because they play right through it.
That's right.
And that's the sign of a professional.
And it's also fun to then get it. Like, I come out of the traditional, as the marketer, we'd have a video, we'd gather it all, and then all the executives would be in the green room, or in the editing suite. We'd spend all day and get pizza, right? But it's in the editing where you find the magic.
Yeah. Of course, you need to have the content there. So that's where the pre-production comes in.
Right.
But if you have all that, like I said before, it's just a matter of putting the puzzle pieces together. And that's part of the secret sauce.
Well, I've seen some of your work, and I know that's really where you shine. So it's been a pleasure to have you, and thank you for sharing your thoughts with our audience. And I look forward to putting this out on LinkedIn next week. Um, where I'm excited to share with you because I've spent the last 6 months taking the transcripts out of these interviews and using AI to create amazing content, like at scale. And so I'm looking forward to putting that to work for you.
Cool. Awesome. And vice versa.
Awesome, man.
All right.
Well,
Thank
have a
you,
great
Keith.
week.
Thank you, everybody, for listening and watching.
Thank you, everybody. And Tom, have fun at Dead and Company. Sorry we lost you, but we'll see you next week. All right, everybody. Have a great day.